Thank you for joining us on the biggest story tonight. I'm Niranjan. It's 7 p.m. and in about 90 minutes from now, Russia has called for an urgent UNSC meeting on what it calls bioweapons on Ukraine soil. Now, what is this all about? Let me try and explain that in a couple of minutes for you. This is what Russia's biolabs and bioweapons claim is. They claim that Pentagon has funded biolabs program in Ukraine. The claim of Moscow is that America has created a network of about 30 biolabs on Ukraine soil, details of which are now emerging. Russia claims that Ukrainian scientists have identified 6 families of viruses and that these Ukrainian scientists identified 3 types of pathogenic bacteria, and that these labs, the biolabs that Russia is talking about, experimented with bat to human disease transmission. They claim that 3 bacterial pathogens and 6 types of viruses were part of this study. It's a stunning claim, papers of which have been released by the Russian media. They claim that $32 million in US aid was given for these biolabs in Kiev, in Odessa, Lviv and Kharkiv, all of the cities which are now and have been under intense shelling for the last 23 days. Now, let's tell you what Russia is claiming. Russia is claiming that bioweapons are easily transmittable from animals to humans, and they go on to make a series of claims. Now, let's tell you, and let's also look at whether there are US-run biolabs in Ukraine and what Russia claims. They say, as part of the documents released today, that in 2018 in Kherson, from the details available through these papers, information was concealed about Dirofilarisias outbreak. Now, in 2018 in Donetsk and Luhansk, Russia claimed there was an outbreak of tuberculosis cases. And then these papers that have been released by Russia, you can also find details of these papers on republicworld.com. They say that in 2021, Russia suffered damage from bird flu which exceeded 1.7 billion rubles. And they claim a result of these biolabs was also felt in 2021 in Europe. Damage from bird flu, they claim, exceeded 2 billion euros. They claim in 2022, in this year, in both Georgia and Ukraine, there was a project to analyze the role of bats as natural reservoir for pathogen. Now, these are stunning claims being made by Russia. There are documents to these effect that has now been circulated by the Russian media as well. Now, talking about these biolabs, let me get you some more details of what we know so far from these Russian media claims and the documents that they've released. They claim that American-run biolabs in Ukraine are behind everything that has been happening in and around Ukraine, these very suspicious diseases. Now, this is what Russia claims. They have found documents in Kherson Biological Laboratory, and some of those documents they claim is destroyed. Secondly, they claim that US has been irresponsible in biological activities, and it's something that's not new. And in the last few days, Russia has sort of ramped up the pressure diplomatically, also taking this issue to the UNSC. They've been backed by China as well. Let's get you this report, and we'll go across to our guests to talk about this bioweapons claim and whether there is actually water to these claims. Let me go across to Major J.D. Bakshi joining us on the broadcast. General Bakshi, Russia claims there is enough proof of these biolabs and bioweapons on Ukrainian soil. Today they've released more documents, about 20-30 pages of back and forth between America and these labs in Ukraine. They claim there was bat research that was ongoing, something very similar to China. Now, are these really bioweapons, General Bakshi, and how much do you think will stand?
Niranjan, I must congratulate Republic as the only channel with the guts to show this explosive bit of information. Let me point out to you that when the COVID crisis broke out in 2020, 2021, we had done a lot of research on the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And at that stage, we were shocked to learn from American sources that the American Department of Defense the American Department of DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, had been carrying out this research, funding this research in laboratories in Ukraine. The Russians have now given out a whole list of these laboratories, but the amazing fact is that Fox TV, the American channel, has shown US Senator Dick Lugar in 2010. He had applauded the opening of interim Central Defense Laboratory in Odessa, Ukraine, for biological warfare. He announced it will be instrumental in researching dangerous pathogens used by bioterrorists. You can access this on the American internet. Then the level 3 biosafety lab will be used to study anthrax, polymeria, Q fever, plague, as well as other dangerous pathogens. Victoria Nuland, who was one time, ambassador there, she's also, just admitted that yes, these laboratories were funded by the United States in Ukraine. Some of these laboratories were working on the corona bats, the bat coronaviruses, because the bats in Ukraine, the bats in Russia are common. They were also working on varieties of avian flu. They were testing the birds that fly from Ukraine side into Russia, and they would use them as vectors. Now, how right is it to set up your country as a base for biological warfare against your neighbor? And if you do that, well, I'm afraid if the neighbor retaliates, and retaliates as strongly, well, you have a thing coming. It is now learned from the Russian sources that they had, the Pentagon had given orders to destroy all the incriminating documents, all this thing, but there is still quite a bit left. And when American websites themselves are highlighting this, forget what China is saying. China is saying that the United States had set up 336 biolabs in 30 countries, including 26 in Ukraine alone. There's another figure of 32, but this includes the minor labs. It appears that a lot of these propaganda videos that the Russians had hit hospital after hospital after hospital, how much were they actually hospitals and how much were they these biolabs? Because the Russians went hammer and tongs for the biolab, and especially the one that was working on bat coronaviruses. Don't forget that in the world, the maximum number of coronavirus deaths are in the United States, next India, and third in Russia. So now the Russians are more or less suggesting that a fair amount of this came not from the China side, but from the Ukraine side. And this is tantamount to, weapons of mass destruction, because biological warfare, chemical warfare, and nuclear biological weapons, these are all weapons of mass destruction.
That's true.
Don't forget that America had invaded Iraq on the pretext of weapons of mass destruction, which proved to be a ferric chimera. But here, not one but American sources are saying, yes, there were these labs.
Yeah. Jalbakshi